This is me, and I co-host with UDI the naturalcloud.net user group. At the end of these slides, I'll have a link so you can download them if you like. Today, I'm going to be covering Azure Compute 102. I believe it was in September I did Azure Storage 101. So this is sort of a continuation of that. And I'm thinking of doing another one called Azure Network 103, which might be January or February of next month. So this specific topic is to give a good introduction on cloud compute and talk about the different compute services Azure offers. If at any time you have any questions, just feel free to raise your hand or put a question in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them. So I wanted to go over, a lot of y'all may have seen this. This is sort of division of responsibility, and this sort of comes in with there's many compute options to choose from in Azure, and a lot of this has to do with the division of responsibility. So for instance, if you have a server on-prem, you're really responsible for everything. You know, the data center, the networks, the operating system, the application, everything on that machine. Then as we move into the cloud, we have IS, infrastructure as a service. And this is like a VM where you're no longer dealing with a physical data center, a physical network, a physical host. All that is taken care of by Microsoft. So you can leverage the IS offerings that way. Then as we move more to the left, we have PaaS, platform as a service. And here's where we need to worry less about the network controls, the applications, the identity, directory infrastructure. Now, these are sort of triangles here. So you are responsible for half of it, and Microsoft provides the other half. For instance, you're responsible for delegating the users, and they're responsible for the intra ID. And then as we move even farther to the left, we have software as a service, and that could be like Office 365. So in that case, you're really, it's just the application you're sharing at that point. And we'll see as we cover different compute services where they fall on this. And the thing is that security is also a big deal. So for instance, on-prem, you are responsible for physical security, whereas you don't have to worry about that when you're in the cloud. Microsoft takes care of that. That's a very easy to see responsibility transfer there. And so in September, I did storage. Now we're going to talk about compute. And then next time I give a presentation, it'll be on networking. I just wanted to point out, like, these are sort of the core foundations of Azure or any cloud for that matter. And that's what I was going for with this mini series. And so Azure Compute, it's a collection of cloud-based services that provide infrastructure, tools, resources for running your applications and workloads. And we'll look at the different types of cloud-based services. Of course, the benefits are, you got scalability. You can think of, if I was on-prem and I needed to scale, I had to go acquire another server. It's all possible, but takes longer. When I'm in the cloud, I can just click a few buttons and I can have another VM running or some other service. And also with that, You get a cost efficiency. Again, on-prem, you're buying that server for long run. Whereas in the cloud, I can use it, I can pay for it while I'm using it, and then I can delete it. High availability, so I can provide service. I can use cloud services in different regions to provide a much geographical distribution of availability, which would be very hard to do for in on-prem. You have to have several different data centers. And the security, obviously the part that Microsoft is responsible for, they have, I forget, some $1 billion or whatever. They have a lot of people focused on security. So, the physical security, you'll never be able to match. The cyber security, so when it falls within their responsibility, I don't think you can really match that with an on-prem solution. So there are many Azure Compute services. This is a list of a few of them. The ones I have in a box are ones I'll try to demo today. So we'll probably be talking about, not in this order, but Azure Functions, App Services, AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service, Virtual Machine Scale Sets, Container Instances, and Virtual Machines. Other ones that we discussed previously, I did a presentation on static web apps, which is really cool, where you're running the web application basically from S3. So a lot of these services can fulfill different needs. And before we jump into that, because this is sort of like an intro to compute, I always want to go over resource groups. They're very important. So resource groups are containers that hold resources in your Azure solution. And every demo I do, you'll see I'll be creating a resource group. And generally, as best practice, you'll group your resources into a resource group depending on the life cycle. I mean, you don't have to, but in general, it makes it a lot easier. So for instance, if I have a virtual network, that may be one resource group. And then I have VMs, they may be in another virtual group because the life cycle of the VM may be shorter than that of the virtual network. However, let's say I'm doing a demo and I create everything together. Well, the life cycle of the virtual network and the virtual machine are really the same. So I'd be creating it in the same resource group because I'm going to be removing them at the same time and creating them at the same time. So they have the same life cycle. And this sort of gives you the relationship between an account. Account can have one or more subscriptions. Subscriptions can have 0 or more resource groups. And a resource group can have 0 or more resources. Most times we'll be dealing with one account, one subscription, but lots of resource groups. And we'll be looking at that as we go forward. And resource groups, there's no cost associated with it, so they're free. Deleting a resource group deletes all resources within the resource group. So it makes it a nice, easy way to manage your resources. And inside a resource group are different resources. So we have a virtual machine, we can have a storage service, a virtual network, a network interface, a virtual hard drive, an Azure Kubernetes service. So any number of services can be in a resource group. So the first cloud compute service we're going to look at is virtual machines. Scalable, they're scalable and customizable. They support many operating systems, different Windows versions and Linux versions. Some use cases are like you're migrating an on-prem application, which is on a server, to a VM in the cloud. So with this migration path, it's sometimes a lot easier than switching to a AKS service, Azure Kubernetes service, or a or a container of some sort. It's also good for a quick proof of concepts. You know, want to spin something up, create it, or I want to spin some things up and do some work on it. And now we're going to look at virtual machines. So I've logged into the Azure portal, and I'm going to create a virtual machine. One thing, so in the slides I have is, let me, I believe I have this link already open. Oh, so each of these demos I have is taken from Microsoft's documentation. So I have links to those, but this is just to the virtual machines. There's a lot of good information here, different ways of looking at it. I'm going to do as much as I can through the Azure portal because I believe it's easier to explain and see what we're doing. So if I was to just go to Azure portal, this quick start is going to have us create a Linux virtual machine in the Azure portal. So these are the instructions I'll go through. And basically what I'm going to do is I can go in the search bar up here. I can go on the left to find the service I want to create. So I just type VM. I see virtual machines. We'll see I have none here. I'm going to say create virtual machine. And here's a subscription, right? I have one or more subscriptions. I only have one subscription called My Examples. Yours may be called Pay As You Go or something. But you can rename your subscription to anything you want. So that's why mine's called My Examples. Resource group, I like to create a new one. If I click, you'll see I have a lot of resource groups, but I'm going to create another one, the life cycle of this demo, right? I'm going to call it Compute 102, call it VM, and then RG for resource group. So this is the presentation. I'm creating a VM and RG for resource group. So I can just look at it and know what it's about. This is, I'm not sure if this is new or not, but this is cool. So it's going to tell me approximately how much it will cost me monthly. I'm going to give this a name. I'm just going to call it VM01. I'm going to accept mostly the defaults because we're just sort of checking this out. I'm going to create a Ubuntu server. I'm just going to use this size here. I'm not changing anything. I want to show how easy it is to create. Now, if it's a Windows machine, I'll probably do a username password, but if it's a Linux, I'll do an SSH public key. So generate new key pair, that sounds good. And then that's easy enough name, VM01. And after I create this, it'll let me download that file. And then our generic user is called a server user. The inbound ports is going to SSH22. It's going to be allowed from anywhere. Well, we could take a look at that. And we'll play around with it a little bit. So I'm just going to click next disk. I'm not going to make any changes. I'm going to go networking. I'm not going to make any changes. Actually, public inbound ports, it's going to allow port 22, and it's going to create a public IP. Again, this is a default. I'm not changing anything. but this will allow us, maybe I'll set up a web server when we take a look at that. I'll click management, not change anything. There's a lot of different options. And it's good that you can click on these informationals to find out a little bit more. It's definitely good to go through. Monitoring, not going to change anything. Advanced, nothing. And again, I'm going over these instructions here. This is all I'm doing. So I'll say review and create. It's going to validate. Now I'll click create. Now here's the key pair I asked to create. I'm going to say please download. It's going to download to my downloads folder if I need that. And then I'll return the create virtual machine. Okay. And this will take maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Sometimes it could take 10 minutes. It all depends how busy it is and how big of a machine you ask for. I'm going to the slide out menu on the left. I'm just going to minimize that to give us more real estate. So when it's finished creating, I can say go to resource. And now I went directly to the virtual machine. But let's say I lost my place or whatever. Actually, I'll slide this back out. I can go to resource groups. And I'm just going to type the beginning of what I typed. It's called Compute 102. So here's my resource group. I can go here, and it creates a lot of resources for that virtual machine. Here's the virtual machine. It created a public IP address, a security group, a network interface, a disk, and an SSH key. So when you create a resource, there's a lot of different, you create a service, there's a lot of different resources that are usually go along with that. So I'm going to click on my VM01, which I created here. It looks like it's already in the running state. Let's say connect. Here's the public IP address. So I'm going to paste this up here. Bring it over here. And, basically through the browser, I'm hitting it with port 80 or port 443. If I do HTTP, it's going to be port 80. And, basically we see the spinning. It's not going to connect. I did not allow that. I allowed port 22 through. And I don't have a web server running. I just said start up Ubuntu. So here's, let's see, here's native connect, SSH. So I'll just select here. It says I need this line here to connect. It's going to use SSH-I for interactive. This points to the PM file that I downloaded. It's not in this directory. It's in my downloads folder. The Azure user we saw, and the public IP address, which we allow port 22 in. That's what SSH uses. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to open up a command prompt. And I'm going to go to the downloads folder. Okay, let's do make it a little easier. All right, so we're only looking at this PEM file, right? And so now I just need to change my path, which is in the name of this. So basically, I'm just pointing to that file. I'll hit enter. Yes, first time connecting to it. Now I'm connected. So if I do an ls space -LA, I can see a directory listing. Now this specific Quick Start also has install a web server. So I'm just going to copy this command here. I'm pasting that into the command prompt, hitting enter. There's two commands there, and I'll run both of them. And this will take a few seconds. Okay, while it's downloading, well, we'll see that it finishes. Even if I go here again, we still won't connect. So let's fix that. So I'm going to go to I'm going to go back to the resource group. And I'm going to come over across what's called network security group. So click on this. And this is the SSH, the wizard we said, hey, allow anywhere. Now, a safer thing is to say only allow from my IP address. But since this is a demo, I just said any. And I'm going to go to settings, inbound security roles. It lists the inbound and the outbound, but to edit them, you have to go to a specific inbound or outbound. So inbound, I want to allow port 80. So I say HTTP port 80 from anywhere. So I'll say add. And now this is allowed from anybody can get to that IP address via port 80. With SSH, you had to have my private key to get to the server. If I hit refresh, here we are. Welcome to Nginx. And if you went to that IP address, you would actually see this right now. And that's basically setting up a VM and then installing a web server on it. There's a lot of good quick starts. It's an easy way to learn. And now, like anything, it's like, hey, I don't want to have to really pay a lot of money. So if you just run some tests and then shut it down, it's not going to cost you much at all. So I've gone back to resource groups. I'm going to go to compute 102-VM-RG. I'm going to say delete resource group. And down here it says enter resource group name to confirm deletion. So I'm going to just copy it, paste it. This here says apply force delete for selected virtual machines and virtual machine scale sets. You don't have to click it. It'll just take longer. We're in a demo, so we don't need to shut down properly or anything. I'm just going to force it to delete. So I'm going to say delete, delete. And now it will, within a minute or two, remove everything here. And that's our virtual machines. Now, what if instead of just running one virtual machine, I want to be able to scale up and down easier. So what we have is called virtual machine scale sets. And this, I can have a load balancer in front of the virtual machine scale set, and I can have one or more VMs behind it, all configured the same, and they can scale up and down depending on my need. And this is a good picture here. So this is what we just did, a virtual machine, one public IP address. Now we have several virtual machines with a load balancer in front of it and have an IP address. And this will do, there's different algorithms. It's round robin, like first it goes to the first one, then the second, then the third. You can balance by CPU. There's a lot of different ways to do it. So now we're going to create a virtual machine scale set. Here's the VM resource group I was deleting. I'll hit refresh. You'll see it's all gone. If I go to resource groups, hit refresh. Well, it's still there. It's almost gone. But it won't slow us down. So I'm going to say create. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I can create a resource group and then I can create the resources. But we're going to go to the virtual machine scale tab. So I can type VM scale set. Oops. So virtual machine scale sets. And you see the interface is very similar to a virtual machine. So all the services will be very similar on creating them. So I'd say create virtual machine scale set. And this is, I'm going to close this quick start for VMs. And now we're on the virtual machine scale set documentation. I'm going to go to the quick start for Azure portal. And these are the instructions for creating this. And they're not too involved. They're very similar. All right, so I'm going to create a new resource group. Compute 102-VM scale set -RG. Scale set name, we'll just call it VM scale set 001. When you create any services, best practice is to create your service closest to your users. Just East US. So I'm leaving everything as a default. Here's Ubuntu again. Here's one thing to note. Instant count is 2. I could change this between, I think, 0 and 1,000. Oops. Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to leave it at 2. Again, SSH public key. Now, I've already created one. I could create another one. But, well, you know what? Let me just create another one in case something goes wrong. And this way we'll be able to scale set. So now I have this different key here. And I'm going to hit next. I'll say ignore. We're not going to do a spot instance, but spot instance is a great way to save money. It just means at any time Azure can take away that spot instance, but they charge a lot less money. So if you have any services that can take that sort of hit, it's a great way to save a lot of money. I'm just going to hit next. Networking. I'm going to double check these directions here. And think I'm good. All right, so I'm gonna go to networking. Oh, here's load balance options. So I really need a load balancer to take so we're gonna add one here. And to allow traffic, please update the appropriate port configuration. Sure. Oh, this is a little weird. So I'm choosing, I want an Azure load balancer, but I don't have any to choose from. So I got to create one first. Create another pop-up and call it VM scale set -LB for load balancer. I'm going to make it public. I'm just going to hit create. And now it's automatically in there. Management, nothing different. Health, nothing different. Advanced, nothing different. Again, we're keeping it simple. Yeah. Tags, nothing. Review, create, nothing. And then I'll say create. And download the private key. And voila. So let's take a few seconds to create. And it sort of tells us the resources it's creating. It's creating a NIC card. I'm sorry, the security group, load balancer, public IP address, the virtual. This is the main service we're trying to create here. We'll give it a few more seconds. And up here we have this, you can see, notifications. It said it just finished. I wanted to miss all. So now, but this is, you can always check here. So I can go to resource. This is looking at the specific virtual machine scale set, but I want to look at the resource group, which contains all the resources. So I'm going to the compute 102 VM scale set -RG. And we'll see, I'm going to not minimize, but I'm going to decrease the size so we can sort of see more of the resources. And what I wanted to point out is I said scale 2. So here's a virtual machine. I have 2 virtual machines. All right, they're within a scale set. Now, let's assume I have some traffic coming in, and it's going to send some traffic here, then some traffic here, then here and here. But let's say, oops, this machine died on us. So I'm going to hit delete. Not delete resource group, but delete to delete the specific resource. Apply force delete, type the word delete, and we'll hit delete. So it's getting rid of it. And remember E420, it'll go away. Refresh a few times.
To the main refresh. Sometimes that refresh won't get all the data. Just to the browser reload.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Go all the way to the top left corner and reload it.
Okay, thank you. I'll do that. All right, so it did look like it removed it. But now what I would expect, another VM should be automatically created, but it wasn't. Why is that? Let's go to the virtual machine scale set. And obviously it would take a few seconds. And like Udai pointed out, I may have to come up here and reload the whole browser because sometimes it doesn't refresh automatically. But in this case, it's not creating another virtual machine. So I'm going to go to virtual machine scale set. I'm going to go to settings, configuration, and I'm sorry, so close. Availability and scale, then scaling. And if we look at the instant count, it's now at 1. This is also set to manual, which was, I know I went through the wizard quickly. I have a lot of demos to go through, but this was the default setting, manual. So when it's set to manual and you delete a virtual machine, it changes the instant count. So it doesn't really do what you expect. I expected the scale set to maintain those number of virtual machines. So I can go to custom auto scale. And this will now keep it at a specific one. So I'm going to put 2 here real quick. I'll hit save. And I just changed the number so it will scale up to 2 VMs. We'll go back to the resource group, hit refresh, and we see there's 2 VMs now. Now, if I delete one, let's delete the oldest one. Maybe it'll delete faster. Remember, I'm deleting 24881. And this will disappear. We'll give it a few seconds. I forgot the number we're deleting. I'll tell you, but I think it was this one.
Yeah, you're deleting 24881.
Oh, thank you. I short-term memory. So we'll refresh the browser. And now it's gone. Now it could take up to a minute and a half, but the VM will come back, a new VM, not the same identifier. And that is, so now I have a scale set that I can keep at the same scale. And obviously you can hook that up to different algorithms. Hey, if the CPU goes up, or if a certain time of day, scale it down or scale it up. And that's one way you can provide a versatility of compute power. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this resource group because the only difference is we'll see another one create here. hit refresh just in case. No. So I'm going to delete this resource group. All right. And now we'll move forward. And we'll look at container instances. So container instances, I don't have to do as much as a setup for a VM. So you sort of say, hey, what's the difference between a container and a VM? Well, a VM is going to have the entire operating system with it. So it's a much bigger image, where a container is a much smaller image because the guest OS is shared amongst all the containers. So they're much smaller. They start up faster. And Azure offers it as a service. So now this is probably still deleting. It's already gone. I'm going to go to ACI or Azure Container Service. See the keyword I type ACI, it came up. You can type container instances. There's lots of ways of finding this. And say create container instance. And so we are looking at this Azure Container Instance documentation, deploy container instance portal. And we're going to create a container that will have a web server running on it, and it'll say, welcome to Azure Container Instances. And let's go ahead and go through that. I'm going to create a new resource group called Compute 102-ACI-RG. I'll call it ACI 01. I'm just going to do a quick start image, but you could, in practice, you probably create your own image that has your own software already configured on, and then you would upload it to an Azure Container Registry, and then you would use it from there. Or from your own registry. Maybe it doesn't even have to be Azure Container Registry, any registry. I'm going to set the defaults here. They have an image here called Hello World, just for us. So now I'm just going to click networking. DNS label, I want to be able to get to this via fully qualified domain name. So I'm going to call it, it's got to be all lowercase, ACI 01. Hey, look at that, that's available. Usually if you type something like test, it's got to be uniquely unique. So something like that's not going to make that good. But I guess nobody took ACI 01. I'm going to allow port 80. I'm just going to go next for monitoring, next for advanced tags. Let me make sure I didn't skip a step. Let's see. I don't think it did, but let me double check. I want to be able to make sure I can connect to the machine. Okay. So I'm just going to review and create. Okay, so it's missing some information. Let's find out. Under basics, that's a strong indication I didn't do something right here. The container must contain only lowercase. Okay, I can fix that. Okay, validation passed, and now I'll hit create. Creating my container. Creating a container, a very small container like this should not take long. So we'll give it a few more seconds. The next demo may take a little bit for it to be deployed. So That's the Azure Kubernetes service. So when I create that, we'll go to the next demo and then go back. But this one will create fast enough for us to continue here. So I'm going to go to resource. And here's my fully qualified domain name. Just so I keep consistent with the way I was doing everything, I'm going to go to the resource group. And we can see in this case, they only had to create one resource for the container instance. So I'm going to go back there, fully qualified domain name. I'm going to paste it up here. It may take a second, it may still be spinning up the container, but oh, there it is. Welcome to Azure Container Instances. But let's play around with this a little bit, because this is really cool. I'm going to go to settings, containers. I'll jog my memory in a second. Let's see. What I want to do is I want to log on to that machine, and then I will change that web page, which is, I think, pretty cool. So let me go to the resource group. Going to the container instance. Let's see, monitoring. Oh, here it is. So under containers, I'm going to click connect. I'll just set the default. I'll say connect. Now I'm already on the machine. I didn't have to create a SSH key, private key or anything. So I'm looking at the files. This automatically opened me to the USR source app folder. And in this folder, I noticed there's a file called index.html. My guess is it's this file right here. So if I was just to do a cat index.html, we'll see, a bunch of HTML. Let's say I want to replace that. So I'm just going to echo H1, hello everyone. And then I'll throw it into that file. All right, so now if I do another cat, we'll see that this file now contains this HTML. Professionally done, yeah. All right, so I hit refresh, and now it says, hello everyone. So I was able to edit that live. But I just thought that was cool. So now that was the container instant demo. So I'm going to delete that resource group. When you're inside a specific resource of a resource group, at the top, you always see the top left, you'll always see resource group, and that way you can navigate up to the resource group that contains all those resources. In this case, only one resource. I'm going to say delete. And that'll take care of that. Kubernetes service. So Kubernetes service allows us to, so we just created we just use ACI, Azure Container Instance. But let's say we have a lot of containers. Well, we might want to consider Kubernetes service. It manages container orchestration. We have like a master node, and then we have a cluster of worker nodes. And inside we have, you could think of a node as a VM. And inside that node, there is 0 more pods. And a pod can have 1 or more containers. Most of the time, they have a single container. Now, Kubernetes service, just a little side note, I've worked with this. it's a very high learning curve. So depending on your project and needs, it's not something you just gonna be able to create real quick and maintain just for a simple website or something. But when you have something more complex or some of the features of Kubernetes services, when a pod goes down, it'll automatically create a new pod. You can have tighter provisioning. You can have more pods per node. So there's some benefits, but just warning you of the high learning curve for it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't use it, but just letting you know. All right, let's create one. All right, so here's the Azure Kubernetes service and create a Linux cluster. I like the Azure portal one. Let me see the time. Oh, so given our time, I'm just thinking what's a better way to go. So we have the Azure portal, and I can click on these, but what we could do is we have this deployed to Azure, and this will just take care of everything for us. So let's try that. And let's click on that. And this is going to use an ARM template to deploy everything. So it's a little different. So I choose my subscription, region, resource group. So compute 102, AKS-RG for resource group, and cluster name. I'm going to call it AKS01. And I'm going to hit confirm. And I can hit run, and so we were doing a deep dive into AKS. We go through each one of these, but I'm going to say run all steps and we'll come back. But as you can see, it's fairly easy to run this quick start demo. And I highly recommend you go through it. You can look at it with the caveat that it doesn't have a high learning curve. So I'll say run all steps and it's going to continue. So we're going to come back to this. This could take a few minutes. Sometimes it's quick, but sometimes not. All right. App services. Manage platforms for building, deploying, and scaling web apps, RESTful APIs, and mobile backends. And supports a lot of different languages. You can use it for your web application hosting needs. And so if we were going to compare this to VMs, this is a platform as a service offering. A VM is infrastructure as a service offering. Remember, it's very similar to a on-prem server. The app service is fully managed, so you have less control, where the VM is full control. You can, touch all the dials on it and install different things and do all sorts of stuff. And now we will do the demo. I'm going to type app service. Here we are. We'll go to the app service documentation, quick start. We'll do ASP.NET. There is a lot of prereqs for this, and I just realized I switched machines just before this demo. But we'll see what we can do. Let's see. I did not think of that. I may have to switch machines. Let's talk about it. So I'm going to get, there's lots of different ways. Here's Azure portal. Maybe we'll get lucky. Well, here's they're saying first you're going to go to this repo. This is a sample app. So, really you would have your own application, but here's an application we can use. Publish your app. So they're going to go to app services. They're going to create a web app. We'll see how far we can go. This is still creating. And what's nice is, even though this is still going, I don't have to be frozen on this task. I can, I just keep the tab open. I'll keep working on something else, such as app services. So I'll say create web app. I'm going to create a resource. Compute 102 web app RG. Let's give it a unique name. Oh, it has to be lowercase. So one that you can tell is lowercase if that's going to be some URL. So, and it didn't like that. Like that. There we go. Put enough zeros on it, you'll get a unique name. Runtime stack. Let's go with .NET 8. And I'm going to say East US. And I'm going to keep everything else the same. Next is deployment. Let's see what they do here. Oh, let's go back to our AKS, because I know this will work versus, so this is finished deploying. This is our Kubernetes service. I'm going to go to the resource group and, oh, just one resource. So there's AKS, and so we can look at different namespaces. These are your generic namespaces. You can add more. Usually you'll divide your applications into different namespaces for isolation. Your pods are going to be your workloads. Oh, since we did that ARM template, it loaded a demo file, application for us. So we'll take a look at that. And I'm assuming this right here, our external IP, we'll be able to take a look at the application. Live fetching product. I may have needed to hook this up to a database, but we do have, yeah, so probably got the products from the database. I didn't do that part. But as we can see, it is running an application, which is really cool. And there are actually, so we'll go further with this because there was something I wanted to show y'all. Let's see. It was, take a second to find out where it was. Maybe this was it. So let's see. And, oh, this is it. Okay. So I went to Kubernetes resource, run command. I didn't have to set up kubectl locally on my machine or anything. I could just come here and I'm able to access the worker nodes. I said, hey, how many do I have? And basically I have one here, get nodes. But let's start up, I have a demo here. Let me find it for a second. It is, all right. So this website, I have my keys on, my fingers on the long keys. Sorry about that.
You should use a ChatGPT. It'll give you everything.
That's true. I just trust it. So I came here just so I can copy and paste the commands, and the maybe better off just typing it. All right, we'll just type it. All right. So let's say I'm gonna create a pod using Nginx as a web server. I'm gonna put it on port 80, and it's gonna create a service for it. So let's see what happens. Oh, number created it. Sorry about that. Let's see. So I have to create it first. All right, so I'm going to create a pod called Nginx-pod, port 80. It's going to run. And then I'm going to expose that pod to port 80. And I probably didn't think it well enough through, but let's say I have a public IP address, which is right. There we go. Well, one way is if I go to workloads, right? I'll see the pod I created. I should see it. Oh, sorry, that's deployment. I should be under pod. I did not create a deployment. We'll see. Here's the pod I created right now. You can go to service and ingress. And we'll see the service I created here. And so there'd be another step I'd have to do to expose this. But then we just see Nginx web service welcome, and I deployed a pod here. So it's cool when you get up and running. It is a little more complex, and but this quick start is a very quick, easy way to start it up and play around with it. And then when you're done, you want to, so another thing I wanted to show you is we've been creating our own resource groups. And the one I created for this was called Compute 102 AKS RG. However, when you deploy AKS, it will automatically create another one with different resources in it. So it's important you don't mess with that. These are the resource groups in here. Actually, this is where I would go to expose it. No, but I won't waste your time you watching me troubleshoot it. But when I delete the other resource group, it will get rid of this. But just want you to be aware of once in a while, a service will create another resource group with its services. And AKS is one of those services. So I'm not going to delete it yet in case we have more time, but that's AKS services. And let's take a look at, let's see, we were going to create a web app. So I'm just going to say, I'm just going to accept all the defaults. And we'll say create. And so this is good. So some once in a while you get an error message like this. And let's see what it says. The region has quota of 0 instances. Try selecting a different region or SKU. So I actually came across this yesterday, and I forget if it was a region or the SKU. The SKU is the image size. I think for some reason East US just doesn't have anything. So, oops. That'd be basic. Let's try US East 2. And now I'm going to go back to create. So all I did is change the region to see if we get around that error message. And it looked like we did. So sometimes, there's not enough resources in that region, or you don't have enough quota in that region. Maybe I have other things running and so Azure or Microsoft has certain quotas. So I can run so many VMs. Now you can ask for a higher quota, and then they'll let's say I'm making this up. I have 5 VMs of a certain size running in the US East region, and I need to run 6, but I'm not allowed to. So then I would go, and it's literally just a few clicks, and they automatically approve you right away. Sometimes it could take a day, but most of the time it's right away because it's a reasonable request, and then they'll just allow you to have a higher quantity. All right, so now I'm at my web app service, and here's my default domain name. And it says your web app is running and waiting for content. So basically it just throw up a blank page up there. So now I would need to upload a web app. And what we'll do is we'll just look at the instructions for that. Let's see. So I would want to say for this, so if you're doing this one, what I would do is Let's see. Yeah, sorry, I had this on my other machine so we can upload it. But you have to, for the software and all, I have to have the right .NET version and all that. So we'll come back. Maybe this will jog my memory, but I'm on the wrong machine. Okay, functions are a serverless compute option, runs code on demand without managing infrastructure. So whereas in a web app, I'm going to run an entire web application. A function, I'm just going to run a tiny piece of logic. And the difference between these are, Azure function is serverless. The app service is a platform as a service. Azure function is going to be event-driven. Use case is like lightweight APIs, background tasks, where an app service is going to be like a web application. Function's got to be short-lived. It can't be something that runs for 30 minutes or something. There's a limit to the execution time. Now, functions you pay per execution. Azure app, you have a higher fixed cost because it's always running. But let's say you have a function that's only called once a month. Well, I mean, you don't need a web app for that. It'll be cheaper to have the Azure function. It all depends on what you're doing. And we'll take a look at the instructions for that. And let's see. Sorry, just looking for here we are. Okay, Azure function documentation. Maybe it was the function one I had to do a lot. Yes, it was. So the prereqs, you don't need to install Visual Studio 2022. You did need a subscription, obviously, for any of this. And let me go to command line. Oh, here's what happened. Okay. So I had to install the .NET 8 software development kit. I had to update my Azure command line interface to version 2.4 later. I had to make sure, this one I had the right version, but I had to make sure I had this version or later. And then I needed to download this Azure function core tool. This tool right here allows me to run these commands, function int. I do not have that on this machine. Apologize for that. But after you do the prereqs and you install, you're probably going to be 64-bit. Then you'll have this, command. You'll be able to run function init. So you're creating this project. It's going to create it in a folder. You'll target a framework. You'll change into that folder. And then this one says, hey, I want to trigger off the HTTP trigger. So basically, when you call a specific URL, it'll be called. In this case, we're saying anonymous. So there's no, you don't have to log in or anything for it. And this would be your C# code here. And basically, when you call the API, it would say, welcome to Azure Functions. And obviously, you can edit that. Now, to run it locally, so you would do all this, and then function start. It would give you a localhost random port, and you'd be able to go to it locally on your machine /API/HTTP example. Now, this here is obviously just this name. And then what we want to do, so you've tested it locally. Now you want to upload it. So you're going to log into your Azure portal. And this is why we need the prereqs of the Azure command line interface. So you're going to log in at the command prompt. You're going to create this is the command line interface to create a resource group. Now, you can run this command or you can just go to the portal and create your resource group. It's the same thing. And then you're going to create a storage account. The code has to live somewhere, so you have to create a storage account. And again, you can run this command or you can go to the portal and create that storage account. This one's going to actually create the function app and assign it to the storage account and give it a name. And then this is the magic that will deploy it. So this will deploy that function app, and then you will be able to go on the internet to that specific fully qualified domain name. And you'll be able to, so then it'll be something like this. So this, obviously this will be different. This first part will be different for you. This will be the same /API/HTTP example. And then you'll get that welcome message. Now, a lot of these services we've been calling up, and there's some domain, and you just have a subdomain. All this is customizable. You can have your own fully qualified domain name, and you can configure that too. The purpose of this was just to go over the computes and to talk about the differences. So in summary, we have virtual machines, which are very like their counterparts on-prem. We have scale sets where you take several virtual machines that are the same, and we can scale them up or down depending on the load we need. I have container instances, which now we don't have to manage as much as a virtual machine or a virtual machine scale set. Kubernetes services, which allows us to manage many containers, where the container instance is only one. In-app service, so now we're moving to platform as a service. So now we can just concentrate on our code, our web application code, and then upload it and run it. And then functions, where we're running just a little tiny piece of code. It's not really a full application, but we get paid per execution on that. So depending on your needs, you may use one or more of these services. And I have links on GitHub. And here's some more resources, learn. And potentially, I'm guessing January 15th for Azure networking, if you found this useful.
This is a great topic. There's a question that
yes.
Do a cost management. I can answer that question, and you can cover me. If you go back to the portal.azure.com, can you share your screen? Yeah, since you are there.
Yeah.
So if you expand everything by clicking on the up arrow, down arrow, right after the text box. Yeah, no. On the right under the web app 0001, there is a small icon. No, a little bit down.
Oh.
No, no, not that. One before. Yeah.
This one?
No. Where you clicked, there is a small icon right before that. No, right after the text box.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It's
sorry.
Fancy icon. Scroll down all the way.
And let's see.
There is a cost. They don't provide. Okay, go to the resource group. You go to resource group. They will give you a cost. So you can find a cost estimation over there. How the cost management. Yeah, you are there. It's cost management. Yeah, so you can look at it, everything, how your cost is going to be. From this section of it, you can set the forecast. You can say, alert on the forecast. I want alert once it reaches this threshold. You can do all the cool things over here. You can set the budget, how much you want to spend it, and on this particular resource, and you can turn it down if once that reaches the budget, and it'll automatically resume the next month. Dan, if you want to answer more, please proceed.
Oh, sure. So yeah, it's a very good point. And so the reason why we don't see any cost here is I've only run it, for less than a few minutes. So sometimes it takes a little bit before you see that. It could be a day. Now we can also see cost for the entire subscription if I go to cost management and billing. Maybe I don't have anything through here.
Yeah, the advisor takes a little bit longer. I can unmute Ken if you want to speak. Feel free to speak if you want to. So that's how it is. Go back to the resource group and expand the cost management. Okay,
Yes.
so advisor recommendation is the very key one. It based on how your resource been using it, it will do a crazy recommendation that you can save a lot of money in it. So for example, you provision the 8-core CPU, 32 gig RAM, but your consumption is kind of 1%. It will tell you, hey, you are over provisioned your service. You can do this to save your money, and it will also tell you how much you can save out of following that recommendation. That takes a time. That's not going to happen overnight. You have to leave the system for a lot of time, like maybe days to weeks. Then the advisor recommendation works correctly. But you are not going to see the advisor recommendation right away telling you what is good, what is bad. But you can use other stuff, cost analysis, cost alert, and budgets. You can take advantage of all those things to be efficient on the cost management.
Yeah, so if we were to look at maybe a resource group I've had forever, let's see if there's any cost that we can see. I'm probably in the free version.
I think it's still loading. It's still loading. It's saying still loading.
Oh, yes.
You can look at the last month.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes, so there are APIs. You can query it. That's how a lot of business built in the early days. They use the APIs to build their own dashboard and cost recommendation. So if you look at it historically, last 3 to 5 years, there are lots of companies that they built on top of these APIs to recommend the cost savings, because a lot of people are losing money. They create the resource, they don't use it correctly. Answer to your question, yes, there are APIs. Right now, I can't remember, but we can post to the comment section where you can find more documentation. Yes, there are APIs.
And another point is, like, for instance, we don't see any cost here. That's because this is a static web app. I did this as a demo, and it's really just S3 storage, and it's just a few pages, which costs, I don't even think, a penny. So it doesn't even, so there are ways to save a lot of money. Like, this is costing me nothing here. Also, like, if you have a VM scale set, use spot instances over on demand. That's a great way to save money if you can handle the, one spot instance going down here and there. If your application is resilient to be able to handle that.
Yeah. The APIs, you can even query the minute-based, up to the minute roundings. Some services they provide up to minutes rounding, other services are hourly roundings, and whatever they support, you can query it, and then you can estimate your own if you want to do it that way.
And one thing I find is, like, when you're learning something new, is like, go to the budget and billing, every day. And then over time, you can see the cost and get familiar with it and dive deeper.
That's a
I'll put that up there again if anybody wants to get that.